All right, so today we are going to talk about a book which I think Academic Agent released about a month ago, or at least it feels like it. It's about um, the Italian school of elitism or whatever. But basically, um, let's just jump right into it. So I listened to a couple of streams where Academic Agent discussed. Um, this book that he wrote, The Populist Delusion, and basically what was his motive for writing it. And basically, he said that it was to show that liberalism, like delusion, that you can remove politics from life, from culture, or that there's any way to escape uh, politics into culture or into something else. Um, or like I guess like one of the ideas that keeps on coming up in the book is that like you can't separate politics from the
Yeah,
economy. Yeah.
Yeah. I would
yeah,
say he
that's
said that the culture, the society, politics, basically, and the claim is basically that the elite are running them, uh, are the ones who are dictating these things, the culture and the economy. Uh,
So I guess a good way to go into this would be to discuss what he means by the elite. So by the elite, he doesn't necessarily mean um, the property owning classes necessarily.
yeah.
Like it's
Well,
yeah.
yeah. Let's say it this way. He analyzes the work of a few thinkers, and going through the years, one after the other, and it shifts kind of. Okay, so it begins with Mosca, um, and first it's about it's about the thinkers who kind of attack this liberal idea that that the people are that in a in a liberal democracy the people are the ones who are the sovereign. And they say no, the elites are the sovereign, um, and the like we said, they control the culture and the economy, and they dictate it as a top-down thing. Um, the idea of the system of checks and balances, which is part of this liberal myth, uh, doesn't really work because it's all this, they're all part of the same elite, so they're all basically part of the same mindset, and they are basically the idea is that they want to preserve their power. Yeah, so they all kind of um,
well,
support each other against basically the people.
y-
And
but
uh, the thing that kind of changes throughout the years is that there's a shift towards the idea that what the elites are now the managerial class. Uh, so that's kind of something that kind of that develops. Uh, no, you don't find it in the early thinkers that he talks about, which is the beginning of the 20th century, but towards the middle of the 20th century, there's the talk about that the managerial class is now taking over. The managers who are managing companies and institutions and academy, and so all those managers are part of kind of the same elite, and they want to maintain the power, and that's the idea here. That's basically the book.
yeah, the insight of managerialism comes from James Bonham,
Yeah.
who in life was started out as a Trotskyist, ended up sort of recanting those views, uh, ended up sort of I think joining the National Review early on and shaping a little bit of American right wing politics in the 50s, but I'd say not decisively so. He always had an attraction from the stuff I've read of him and Orwell talking about him towards power and whatever government had a lot of power and was able to use it effectively. And I think his Burnham's conclusions about the managerial elite having completely erased and taken over the bourgeois is pretty inescapable at this point.
Mhm.
You saw this in the reaction to Elon Musk's attempted takeover of Twitter, where theoretically this is one of the richest guys in the world. He's just trying to establish control over a little fiefdom of one single tech outlet. If there couldn't be anything more bourgeois than that, that should be perfectly normal. Yet the entire system turns against him on that and talks about how it'll only be one man if there won't be any proper channels to verify what he's doing and the that the things that are allowed to be put on Twitter will all be correct. Of course, the fact that the people who are in charge of doing that on Twitter right now are pretty terrible at it is beside the point.
Oh, it's because they are all part of the elite. So they are putting for the truth of the elite, so that the thing that the elite believes in. So
Hmm.
and they're afraid that Elon Musk will allow other things.
Yes.
Uh, I'm the same with I mean Donald Trump. Yeah, so you had this guy president, but he couldn't do anything because according to AA, because the entire managerial elite was against him. We should add also, I forgot to mention that kind of the idea kind of is not completely, but it is floated the idea that because of this, there is no essential difference between a liberal democracy and an authoritarian state.
Hmm.
Um, that's the kind of the claim that is. I think AA is not committing to it completely, but it is in the book. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I agree 100% on that. You can get in a realist interpretation, yes, I think you can very much see the point that there's not a terrible amount of difference. However, you can very much make the point that ideology, flavor, etc., does end up shaping a system, does end up pushing it in different directions that may or may not be useful. Like North Korea, for example, is realistically a monarchy.
yeah.
Is it governed like, let's say, any of the Middle Eastern monarchies that, like, say, the Kingdom of Jordan? No, it's much 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 worse.
Yeah.
So
S-
yeah,
Yeah.
you can see how ideology can really have a decisive
Yeah.
impact there.
I just say to the listeners that I am going to harshly criticize the book, but right now we're still. Oh, well, we will see the direction that I'm taking with it. But I won't say actually that I'm harshly criticizing it, but we'll see the direction. But yeah, uh,
So, I guess so in one of the interviews that he gave, Academic Agent said that it would be better if there was an authoritarian, if the left, uh, the elite or whatever became authoritarian, because at least then you could see the boot on your face.
mhm.
Um, so who is this?
By the way,
Yeah.
this is not new. I mean, the Frankfurt School was saying kind of the same thing. That they were saying that at least in the Soviet Union, you can see the the yeah the oppression, whereas
Mm.
in the West, you have oppression, but you don't see it, you don't feel it. It's in the
Yeah.
ideology that controls you.
Yeah, I mean, another thing of another one of the things which A said in that interview was that the left is always like a couple of steps ahead of the right when it comes to these things, and um, that he also claims that this stuff, this elitist stuff, used to be popular on the left too before the war, at least. Um,
But I'd say one of the main insights of this book, and one of the bits of it that you could say is one of the most controversial, and some don't get. I remember seeing a essay was put out by Charlemagne on his Substack, and it was basically going over many comments about the book, since it was put on some sort of like conservative women's outlet in the UK. Someone reviewed it, and the what a lot of the commentators, I mean, most of these people did not read the book, obviously, but what a lot of these people did not get is this book is not merely making the argument that liberal democracy is inherently oligarchic. It is making the argument that all systems of organized government are inherently oligarchic.
Yes, and
There's
it's inescapable. It's part of the nature yeah, of
Yeah,
ruling.
yeah. It's summed up by Michael's quote: "He who says organization says oligarchy."
mm. So I guess this book, I guess, obviously it's for academic agents audience, which already agrees with him, but it's also directed against um, people on the right who believe in that populism can save Europe or America,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
um, yeah, go on.
Or even just the belief, the libertarian belief that this idea that the government can be just there to just be kind of managed, kind
Yeah,
of
the
and thing and let the economy has to be free.
yeah
Is
the
Yeah,
night the myth of like the night watchman state.
yeah,
Right. And I think that basically this is summarizing. This book is summarizing the reaction, at least in A's sphere, of towards the election of Trump, and obviously the things which happened on January 6th, um, and also the vote to leave the European Union, which didn't really change anything. Um, uh,
I
yeah,
would say it's also about the what we were part of, this populist or let's say this internet movement since, let's say, since Gamergate, which apparently AA, unlike me, thought will or at least, I actually didn't, but he claims that a lot of people thought that this will uh, this will easily do away with all this woke stuff, and then they found out that actually the elites are kind of against them because they mistook the nature of the society. Yeah, they thought that the society is liberal, and therefore will be against all this illiberal stuff. But then realized that the elites are actually against them. Uh, this is also something that he mentions in the book, and actually something that kind of made my ears perk because this is not how I saw things, and this is exactly. I think this is where actually that kind of uh, that kind of was explained something to me, which all the guys that were with me, like in back in 2016, 2015. they all either drifted to the left or to the right.
Mm.
Almost all of them. None of them is kind of a lot of them kind of had this liberal had this position that was similar to mine, which is comes from a liberal position, and because of that rejects this illiberal woke stuff. Um, but they all either became conservatives or even just went alt right, or they kind of went back to the uh, became progressives. They didn't
Yeah.
they didn't become woke,
Hmm.
but they became progressives.
Yes, yes. I think we didn't talk. Schmidt goes into this further in some of his own writings. I believe the one I've read is something like political theology or something like that. And he goes into a lot the idea of liberalism is the idea of both neutrality and the idea of constant parliamentary talking to never really decide one way or another. And so he's kind of critical of that in that capacity. But I think you're quite right about the way the direction of things since 2016. Uh, I think a lot of that has to do with that the belief that no one at this point believes that the governments in the West are neutral. No
Yeah.
one does. Like, I don't know how much we can go into this, but uh, I really feel like 2017 Charlottesville and the where and that was really something because that was the local government, just the local government of a fairly small town in America, and it worked to push together protesters to purposely cause something violent to happen. And if things are that bad at that even at a local little town, that's going to be the inevitable result, then it's very, very hard to think that you can find neutrality anywhere in the system.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess the moment that that to me personally, it seemed like, yeah, this is top down, was when gay marriage was legalized throughout the US. And like it wasn't really done democratically. Let's put it that way. And yeah,
Yeah.
It was done by the system. It was the Supreme Court decided. So
I guess
it
so.
is.
I guess
Oh,
so.
no, but that's what they've
I mean, it
done.
was done. It was done top down, which I didn't like. Yeah, but it is what it was done in the democratic way. Uh, that's the system in America.
It was,
I would have preferred it to just come as it did. I mean, most states already legalized it. Yeah, and
but the
I want it to continue.
But the
Uh,
thing is, they never would have been. And I think someone like AA would say that they never would have been satisfied with that. Uh, and also, you can see this in terms of like California is a great testbed example where courts have a habit in America of basically undercutting whatever the democratic mandate is, usually on some technicality. A lot of this stuff having been set up during the civil rights era and becoming the basis for that, where you can, let's say, California has like a proposition system where once a proposition gets popular enough, it becomes it goes to the ballot box in the next
yeah,
general election. People vote on it, and it's supposed to go up and down. There have been many such propositions, be it ones about uh, that are more immigration related or actually gay marriage as well,
yeah,
where the people of California clearly voted in one way, and yet the courts found some vague reading, essentially in civil rights law, well, we have to have non-discrimination in all things, even against groups that do have differences. Like we can't even have discrimination between citizens and non-citizens. Therefore, therefore, all these voting on propositions are legally null and void. And so that's been like very, very common already in the American system.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the activist court that they are that they complain about. Again, I don't see that as such a bad thing. I don't like top-down things, like I said, but you can live with it. It's not. I mean, here in Israel, it's a big thing. Also, they say that the 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 right is complaining a lot about the court here, the Supreme Court, uh, but if you look at the history, you see that actually it works well when the Supreme Court is kind of standing in the way of kind of crazy
Democracy.
ideas.
Okay.
I mean, look,
Well,
the government here, we had this illegal immigration problem from Africa. Yeah, they were
mhm,
coming through the Sinai Desert, like thousands every month. They were, threatening to flood the country.
yeah.
And the government thought about ways to stop it. So we want to put them all in this kind of holding facility.
Hmm.
And they said this will prevent others from coming. When they will know that they will not get jobs here, but they'll just be held in a.
Hmm.
And the Supreme Court said no, you can't do that. You can't. First of all, you can't hold them.
Definitely.
Indefinitely, because okay, so they committed some kind of crime in entering illegally, but you can't hold them indefinitely. And number two, when you're doing that, you are using them as instruments, yeah, because you're doing it to deter others, yes, and you're not supposed to use human beings as instruments. That's against justice. Okay, so they annulled this law. So the government had to find another solution, and they built a wall, and it worked. It's and we are one of the only countries now in the developed world that doesn't have an illegal immigration problem, doesn't have an immigration problem at all, and we did it in a way that wasn't inhuman. So
But
so yeah,
yeah, but okay, you can point to an example like America, where that happens in America. What ends up happening is the courts, let's say you have a national mandate to turn back illegal immigration, deport these people. You then have courts very much along the same lines that say, no, you can't do that.
yeah,
And then the bureaucracies, etc., will get in the way if you attempt to have any build up a wall, etc. In that case, like that was especially absurd back during Trump's reign when the whole Republican Party was claiming that $4 billion was too much when the United States goes through that in about a day. Uh, but uh, even I sort of lost my train of thought. Maybe you can
So,
go.
so I mean, even in Britain, so I think I shared that graph with you, right? Zarathustra. It's a slide from one of
yeah,
academic agent streams where it shows that public opinion has always been uh, against immigration, but that hasn't really changed anything.
Yeah, so
yeah.
some of the most damning stuff on that, if you don't mind me interrupting here, is back when Enoch Powell got famous and gave his Rivers of Blood speech. Polling shows that solid about 55% of the public in Britain supported Enoch Powell's position and agreed with it. Yet, that was not how he was treated
Yeah,
in the media, and he was absolutely thrown out of the party and out of public life very, very quickly.
yeah. I mean, look, the thing is, this is very vague to say we are against illegal immigration because you have to, if you want to stop illegal immigration, you have to kind of change a lot of other things about the English system, and because it's so this vague polling, ask you ask you ask you do a poll in Israel and ask if you want peace. 90% of the people will say yes, but that doesn't mean that they will support any peace deal that you bring them with the Palestinians. Yeah. Um, yeah. I
With
would I would like to rebut this book. Uh,
with respect, I
yeah.
don't think that's remotely analogous.
Yeah.
In the case of Israel, or like any country where you essentially have a Cold War going on, obviously you're going to be held at the will of the other side. In the case of America, there are still concrete steps that you can take. The border wall was, of course, the one that got pushed by Donald Trump,
Yeah.
that tend not to get taken. In Britain, it's especially telling because, especially once you leave the EU, Great Britain is a island. There are absolutely no ways for people really to get into Great Britain without the permission of the United Kingdom government. I mean, yeah, you can swim the English Channel if you are very skilled, or maybe you can like take a little buoy all the way up to some small town in Scotland and hope that they don't notice. But for the most part, there is no way in to the United Kingdom without the permission of the government. So I really do not agree at all that there is something inherent in the English system or anything like that. The English system and those systems of government have always had a strong division between like citizen, non-citizen, but that those divisions, I'd say, especially since the '60s, have been entirely eroded.
Right. So I think we could like go back and forth with examples for a long time. But I guess the more interesting thing would be like, what do you have any problems with the theory itself in the book Zarathustra?
Okay. So I'm actually agree with the book. The thing is, because okay, now let's go to my work. My claim that the modern age is dead and we're living in the pop age, and and all the writers and there's the the uh, the transitional period that I talk about between the modern age and the pop age is 1915 to 1965, and all the writers that he mentions are in that period.
Hmm.
And this is when the myths of the modern age collapse. Yeah. So this is one of the myths that collapse. The idea of this liberal, and in the pop age, we already take that as, I mean, those who have the pop mentality, we already take that as self-evident that the government is that the elites are in control. Yes. So we when I say liberalism, I take that into account. I don't. I never imagined that it can. We can be not that can. That we have total freedom in culture and. I mean, like the Who once sang, yeah. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anyone you change, it's the same thing. It's the same. It will be the same. Um, yeah, and basically the same elite. It will be an elite that wants power, that wants to preserve its power,
Hmm.
uh, and will have this ideology that upholds its ideals and its
Hmm.
power, and it will try to preserve it, and that's part of it, and that's when I talk about a free society. Uh, it's part of that, yeah. Um, and um,
Yeah, I think academic agent, and certainly I would agree with you that an elite upholding their power is just like standard and the norm.
yeah,
And that you can't have something
yeah. No,
beginning to resemble what we call a free society,
yeah.
but
No,
I'd say the main insight that maybe you and him would disagree with on, and certainly Schmidt would disagree with on, is y- Schmidt especially goes after an idea. He doesn't believe that there is a capability of political neutrality, and that essentially whatever state you're going to build, if it has any hope of being like stable longer term or resistant to attempts to undermine it, must be thoroughly ideological. And what you've seen in America since the 60s or 80s or whenever you want to describe it is one ideology, sort of, for lack of a better term, American right liberalism, has been completely subverted by an ideology of absolute equity between all groups and absolute totalitarianism to achieve that equity between groups.
yeah. Again, I don't think that's I think that that's a fringe, and I don't. But okay, so let me just complete my point. Once you realize that there's always an elite, you actually realize also that this is the ideal state. You don't want. It's more fun like that. Yeah, it's utopia is too boring. Yeah, it is more fun when you have an elite to rebel against. I mean, one song that shows it very well. Elvis Presley's "Jailhouse Rock." There's a party inside the jailhouse, and at some point, some prisoners realize that they have a chance to escape, but they don't want to because it's more fun to remain in the jailhouse and party, inside the jail, than to be outside. And this is kind of an insight, and this is the insight of the pop mindset. And uh, so uh, the ideal society is one that has repression, but also gives you the ability to resist by defining yourself against it, by partying, yeah, basically doing the things that you want to do that bring you joy, um, uh, and and this is where democracy is better than an authoritarian state, yeah, because an authoritarian state will not let you do that. It's
But that,
afraid of that.
but that's basically the idea of controlled opposition, and you're making the argument for the idea that controlled opposition is good. You're right that it can be used as an essential off-ramp mechanism in order to control elements of society that are always going to be somewhat rebellious against whatever system you set up. But the issue there is, since such a thing is promoted entirely to capture of those elements, if the system's devoted just to capturing those elements and to completely redirecting their energies and whatnot, and not really caring about the actual substance of the issues in society, it essentially results in a society and a state where there is no feedback loop. Like
Yeah, okay, so this is my biggest disagreement because where the people in the book believe that culture is a top-down thing. I believe that everything in culture is bottom-up, and the delusion is that it is top-down. And there is I'll give you an example. There is a movie called The Devil Wears Prada,
Mhm.
2006 movie about the fashion industry. There's a scene there, and Meryl Streep is this fashion designer, very famous fashion designer, and there's this point, and they have this young woman, Anne Hathaway and at some point Anne Hathaway is giggling because she hears these fashion people talk about small stuff, about clothes. Do you like it this way or this way? And it seems exactly the same to her, and then just Meryl Streep dresses her down by saying, "You think that you choose what to wear, but actually we chose it for you because you're wearing this blue color of sweater. This is 10 years ago. We decided that this will be the color. Yeah, okay. So, but this is the thing. This is the thing that the elite decides on. The unimportant things, the color. That's not important. In fashion, the style, the clothes that have symbolism, that is bottom up. I mean, you can see it in my videos. Yeah, I talk about, let's say, the Teddy Boys in the 50s. Um, um, Before that, they were kind of the first working class youth, young teenagers, working class teenagers in Britain, first generation that had money to spend on clothes, basically, and they chose. Uh, and they chose this suit that was created for the aristocrats, the Edwardian suit. They
Mm.
chose to make that into the kind of became a subculture, the Teddy Boys, wearing that suit. And why? Because it was familiar. It looked like the Zoot suit, which was this cool thing from America. Um, and and that incensed the elites because uh, the whole idea of the belief was that now that the working class have money, they will
Mhm.
use it, to advance and to and all that. Not waste it on clothes, and definitely not uh, be, become a group, because this is I think the book mentions it as well, that the modern direction was a universal society of individuals. So you
Mhm.
had to develop your universal side and your particular side, your individual side. This idea that youth will huddle in groups, will create tribes, that was like going back to the jungle. That was like reversing the progress. But once that happened, well, the fashion industry said, okay, the working class youth now wants to wear clothes, dress fancy. We will start creating clothes for the working class, and so they created this change that suddenly working class youth started to wear fancy clothes. And when you wear fancy clothes, it changes your behavior as well. So it came bottom up, and then the industry and the elite basically took control of that. But what happens then is that by incorporating it, the elite is also taking in this new idea, this new attitude. That is this is one of the things that brought down the modern age. Yeah, this destroyed this idea of a universal society of individuals. Uh,
Mhm.
so um, and this is my big disagreement, and these uh, uh, examples that he brings. I mean, Black Lives Matter. Come on, this is not a real thing. Or for instance, I think he also
What do you mean by Black Lives Matter is not a real thing?
it's a political movement. It's not a cultural grassroots. Uh, uh, you
Well,
know.
yes, that's exactly his point. That it
Yeah, but
is
okay, but okay. So why are you looking at this and not at culture?
because they have
Look at
power.
culture.
because that's entirely his. Like I feel as though you're making a sharp distinction where you're defining culture as something which is grassroots, whereas AA would be saying Well, Black Lives Matter is something that people have mass taken on because it's top down, and because it's like the new thing, it's the current thing, and everyone's just supposed to go along with it. Uh, it it's no less an example of culture than your example, even
No,
if it's
no, because
even if
no,
it's clearly artificial, because because it is widespread, and it does absolutely penetrate and really change people's ideas of things, and it provides an outlet for certain people to essentially commit crimes that they want.
yeah, but they don't create anything really. So that
I mean,
we're talking about creating in culture.
but,
Yeah, we're talking about
but,
culture that create, and
but
this
what
yeah. Oh, it's
I,
okay.
Let's
I'm sorry, but who says that a culture has to create? Like, we can look at.
If it doesn't create, it will die. And this Black Lives Matter thing is already dying. Yeah, it's and I don't think it had any real effect. Um,
I think that is grossly naive. I think there's something to your statement that there is less interest in it, that it doesn't have much to say, and I don't know if you can extrapolate from that that it's dying, but I think it's grossly mistaken to say that it didn't have much impact. I think it had a profound impact on the American system, and basically faith in the American system. It and the dual whammy of how it was treated and how January 6th was treated was essentially a death blow, and we've been talking about this, to any sort of idea of
neutrality.
nonpartisanship in the American system. Because here you had absolute riots that killed about a half a dozen people, never cracked down upon, mostly for the most part, uh, really encouraged, versus a spur of the moment uh, walk-in, which is treated as a absolute act of terrorism, and the people inside are still being held on various charges, beaten in prison, various rights denied, etc., etc.
yeah, okay,
So
look, but the thing is, look, Black Lives Matter comes at the tail end of a cultural movement that begins in the 60s of, black people kind of, the whole Black Lives Matter belief that is this idea that the American consciousness doesn't see black people in the same way. This is something that the focus on it really came in the 60s, and it came from bottom up, and uh, so say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, this whole black is beautiful, all that. You had to change this consciousness that black was inferior, which was the prevailing thing in the modern
I
age, because they represented the jungle. Yes, so
I I I mean, I would agree with AA there in terms of like, and I partially agree with you that yes, that was a bottom up movement, but it was also a bottom up movement that, if the ruling elite at the time had wanted, could very easily have suppressed. They could have not publicized these people. They could have taken the side
yeah,
of the Southerners, but they did not.
at what
They
time?
chose not to.
What point are you talking in the 60s?
60s, 50s,
Yeah,
60s, etc.
yeah, okay. So they did suppress part of it, but
Yes.
yeah, but look, this is they wanted it. I mean, they wanted the black people to become American, yeah.
Mhm.
And and Black Lives Matter is kind of the tail end of that, which actually after I've been saying that that identity politics is dead, yeah, because actually the American consciousness now sees black people as Americans, yeah. They don't they were back in the 70s, they were seen as the other. They were not seen as Americans. Now they're seen as all American. Yeah, and this was true already 15 years ago, at least, or even more.
Mhm.
Uh, let's say even 2004, I said that. Um,
But
and um, and then okay, so you had this, but you still had that energy. So that was taken over by activists. Okay, so this happens. It always happens. That activists, when something dies, you have from the academy. The academy is where ideas go to die. So in the academy, they took over this idea, um, and kind of created this quasi-Marxist bullshit thing. Uh,
but
and yeah, it had an effect on politics for a while. I don't see it as lasting much longer. Um,
Frank, again, you live in Israel, but I don't even know where to begin critiquing that. But you can see, like, one, going to the idea of who says organization says oligarchy. You can see even back in the 60s, the same shadows of what you see today back then, with certain types talking, like, apologizing, making apologia for Angela Davis, and going up before a big seminar, and saying that when, like, Angela Davis pulled the trigger in an act of terrorism, that was like white supremacy that did that. uh,
yeah.
so you so you can see elements of it, how the activist class is always the one that shapes these energies, pushes them in those directions. Those energies have existed for a long time.
But again,
The
this idea of this basically it's kind of Marxist thought. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's always there in the background, and that sometimes it becomes more prominent. We're living in one of those times where this kind of Marxist thought is more prominent. Um,
No,
uh,
but I think, and this would be the point AA would make, and it's the point I would make, is that in the clash between, let's say, those who want to be left alone, those who want things to stay as they are, versus those who want things to change, versus the organized activist class, the organized activist class will win every single time, simply because they are organized, because they have those connections, because they have an active goal and are constantly pushing towards it.
they
Whereas the
didn't win.
people,
They didn't win in the '60s when they wanted revolution, Marxist revolution, and all that. They disintegrated, and they're disintegrating now. If you look at the whole woke movement, every section of it is now tearing each other apart. It's uh, this is the thing that I'm talking about now. I made videos about it, but it's just crumbling. Um, and look, as I said before, there's this. I see it as a kind of the mainstream current, and then there's the currents that come from below. Yeah, the bottom up thing, which become part of the mainstream. Yeah, and this happens in democracies. In autocracies, these the deep currents are suppressed. Uh, But in democracies, it becomes part of the mainstream swallows it. And because of that, it still gives you the ability it still remains connected to the spirit of time, spirit of the time, even though it's a little bit behind, but it is connected. So it gives you the ability to live a good life. Um, and the problem that I see now is that there's a bigger gap between this elite mainstream thing and and that's because of the internet. The elites did not sh- create the mental shift to the age of the internet, where there is no such thing anymore as controlling speech and controlling information and all that. You have to realize that it's now all out there, and you have to uh, and you have to adjust, and you have to uh, you can't prevent people from spreading the ideas that the vaccinations are bad. You have to rebut it with your with better speech, yeah, that's with better information. You can't
Why?
suppress it.
Why? I mean, look at uh I mean, if we're going to go to COVID, for example, they have been incredibly successful in terms of shutting up any opposition, especially in
No,
countries like Canada, in countries like Germany, etc. Have
no, they
there been?
haven't. A lot of people. You see how many people are not getting vaccinated, and they're
Oh
not
yeah,
getting vaccinated
there's
because they read on the internet that it's bad. So
there's enough people to make it a sizable minority, but those people can very much be sort of like pushed into their hole, moved around, cajoled. And if we were living in a truly like Soviet style system, you could just jail these people.
yeah, but we're not.
Mm.
So and yeah, like
But
I said, I see now a bigger gap between the elites and the people, which I believe is the result of this rise of the internet culture, which the elites have not adjusted to yet, and I believe that they will adjust. We will get, because elites are changing all the time. Yeah, it's not like it's not the aristocracy where it was by blood. It's
mm,
the elites today, people like, I don't know, Bill Gates, Barack Obama, all those, Elon Musk. They did not come from some lofty background. Yeah, they came from below. They rose to the
mm.
top. They became part of the elite, and now the elite, once they become part of the elite, they adopt its mentality. But they also bring in these new ideas that come from below. And this is why I'm this is like I said, this is how it should be. This is to me, this is the ideal society where you have this elite on top, the mainstream kind of this and there's always currents from below that come up, rebel
Like
against it, and then get swallowed by it.
let me give you another example. Hopefully YouTube doesn't go crazy at us for this. Of how culture is like completely top down. As far back as 2008, you had Prop 8 pass in California, which was actually trying to stop gay marriage, and that passed a majority of California voters.
Yep.
Now you have to account for population inflows and outflows, etc. But if you had but these days, you took like such polling or had such a vote, it would be something like 80-20, 90-10 in California.
Hmm.
Why? Because it's literally against the law to hold those positions. You will literally, if you get caught making any such statement, you are at potentiality of getting fired at your job. It's similar with the transgender issue, where it's become a cause célèbre because, frankly, there's great disagreement about how much someone can infinitely self-define themselves. But even so, there are many, many people that. that go along, and are even have even become supportive of radical things like drag shows for children, stuff
Yeah.
which would have been wildly lambasted as openly pedophilic
Yeah.
in the 90s,
None of
but
this is
it
none of
is
this is top down. It's all bottom
none
up.
of it is top down,
None
all
of it
of
is
it
top.
is bottom up,
It's bottom up. The whole the
all of it.
change the change of or the change in the attitude towards LGBT begins. You can see it growing through the decades, but in the
So
90s there's a real change, and it goes through, and then exactly 2008. Uh, yeah, still the majority in California are against gay marriage,
so it has
but it's in those years that, especially YouTube and the internet, gays, just the internet kind of takes this internet culture, which back then completely bottom up, takes this cause and fights for gay rights, and changes society very quickly. I mean, in other places, yeah, in other states, people you have a vote in 2010 2012, states that are and they vote to legalize gay marriage in states in America. Yeah.
yeah.
And it wins everywhere. It starts winning everywhere after 2008. Um, so
So
this stupid thing
tell
that they fire people is completely unnecessary, and it's just part of this. California has been taken over by crazy woke people. Yeah, but
that's not California. That's anywhere in the United States, anywhere in America, and it's not just this. If you quote unquote misgender someone, your employment can be in great danger. Is that top down or bottom up?
the the idea of the LGBT, the whole idea of trans, that's bottom up. Like I said, the elite then takes it and uses it and creates laws and all that. But first of all, the change in attitude towards LGBT was bottom up. The elite then took it and started making all sorts of laws. Uh,
Let's put it this way. Back in Star Trek The Next Generation, there was some episode with like William Riker, and he comes across this alien that is sort of genderless and like tries to fall in love with Riker. Clear parallel to transgenderism, that type of stuff. That type of thinking was absolutely not in vogue anywhere in America at the time, except
yeah,
for very, very tiny circles. Was that top down or bottom up?
it's totally bottom up. Look, it's actually not so much culture. It comes from the academy, but it's then you have these online people who take these ideas, and they run Tumblr and all that and start spreading them. And look, this is ideological. They are trying to convert people to their religion. Yeah, of the gender binary is something that is imposed on us, or
Yes.
actually, or in their case, it's actually the sex binary. They don't believe in sex. Yeah, okay, but actually, it's okay. So it depends which of them you're talking about.
Well,
But yeah,
the as far as I'm concerned, the that distinction was created by I believe Magnus Hirschfeld, and considering the fact that some countries like some languages like Nordic don't even have such a distinction in their language, I don't think it can qualify as a very legitimate distinction.
uh, yeah.
But anyways, that's getting off topic. Continue.
Um, yeah, this comes from people on the ground. Um, and kind of picked up, and
I
and,
mean,
and the, there's a lot of confusion and right now about the trans thing, which is being exploited. And look, what they are using is this idea that is widely held of that you need to give freedom to everyone and equality to everyone uh, equal rights, and this is an American thing, and they're exploiting that, eventually they will find the right balance. But right now it's being exploited to kind of take it too far.
Look, from my perspective, from my point of view, you're basically just redefining everything that you like, that you think is normal and healthy, as being naturally bottom up, and because some people somewhere have had views like that at the time. It's like, yeah,
I'm not saying that.
that's always
Wait,
there.
I'm not saying that the whole non-binary bullshit is healthy and normal, but it
Well,
is bottom up.
how
Uh,
how well, first let's just how do you define bottom up in this case? Do you define it as it is something that a majority of people believe or are sympathetic to, or do you describe it as something that a certain group of people
yeah,
start asserting without the backing of power at first?
yeah, yeah. A certain group of people start fighting for it, and the idea spreads, and the society uh, doesn't have the most people don't have the capacity to reject it. They don't understand why it's wrong. Um,
That's the exact point of this book. Organization implies oligarchy. Now, to be fair, you can make the arguments those groups organized and then thus impose themselves onto the general will of the public, as is the
yeah,
normal case of
it's not that.
things.
Yeah, but they again they don't really have the power. It's that the elite take these ideas and impose them. It's not that non-binary people are now in positions of power. It's that
We
it's
literally have in the United States, a admiral, Mr. Richard Levine. I don't know what he goes by now, but he's like admiral in the United States Navy, and he's been elevated to that position, and he believes himself to be a woman.
okay. That's one guy. What I'm saying is this idea is has been picked up by the elite, and they are running with it. Part of the elite, yeah, the kind of the left part, and they are running with it for all sorts of reasons. Um, they think it gives them power. Look. Also, again, they believe it's a good thing. Yeah, they actually believe that they are fighting for rights. Uh, and yeah, but okay, but there's groups that are fighting against it, and I believe that these groups will prevail eventually because this is bullshit. Um,
I mean, the activists, the political activists. I mean, even on the right, I guess you could say that people like political activists. Um, aren't those the people um who basically organize and then spread those ideas? So, I
the,
mean,
the the the
yeah,
counter ideas, you mean?
yeah, the counter. I mean,
Yeah,
Idea, but yeah, ultimately it is like usually the political classes and people plugged into them that outcompete each other. Like that outcompete other groups in a political capacity. Like you have, let's say, evangelical Christians. Let's say they had their own views, bottom up, but they didn't have any political power until they start to try and enter into politics. Their ideas, even if they were bottom up and held by a lot of them, were not, and even then they were very much forming a defensive faction. Uh, n- they didn't have any relevance until they organized, until they became an organized minority and elite. And even then, they tended to be, while they were given lip service, their policies were never really adopted in the manner and to the extent that they wanted,
Yeah,
uh,
of course not.
because.
It's politics. Uh,
But we can very much contrast that with, let's say, the transgender movement, which is far more radical. And, well, radical is in the eye of the beholder, of course, but more radical compared to the starting point of where American society was when both of those movements started. And they have gotten far, far more of what they want than these other people have.
Not really.
To not really.
What?
They are literally openly celebrated on TV every day, and whereas Christians are looked down upon as low class, they're starting to put out hit pieces
Yeah.
against those
Uh, yeah.
who put
Okay. Because
crosses next to themselves in social
yeah,
media,
but TV
etc.
is one medium that is controlled by a certain group of people. But you have other mediums. You have the
Okay,
internet.
name me a single group of media in which Christianity, any type, is a dominant format in America or the West generally.
Yeah, Christianity is very powerful in the church, first of all, uh, and the church. You
Yeah,
have religious channels uh,
yeah.
on TV, on radio, on
The exception proves the rule. None of they have their own tiny spaces for themselves, but they don't have any sort of huge control over the main means of propaganda dissertation. They don't have huge control over TV. They have their own separate radio stations, but they don't control the large radio stations or anything like that.
yes, because
In terms
what they make is
of
boring. That's the thing that they don't have. Those mediums are not fit for them, and it's part of why they are kind of losing because these modern mediums are the Christianity does not really work well within them. Um, Look, to me, a victory is when you get the people to think in a certain, like for instance, the gay thing is victorious because the majority of Americans now believe in gay rights, believe in equality for gay people and gay marriage and all that. The trans thing has not taken root, and I think uh, I think a lot of the people who say that they are for it don't really know what it's about even. They don't really realize what they are supporting.
no,
Um,
people don't understand the implications of
yeah,
what they are
yeah.
supporting.
So,
That's the norm, and that
yeah.
would be the book
Yeah,
would make.
but no, but when it comes to for instance, after it's been discussed for decades, people know. For instance, the gay thing, people are a lot more aware of what it is, what homosexuality is about, what it is, what gay marriage is about. They know what we are talking about. Um, when it comes to trans, they don't. And again, this is the type of thing that is exploited by all sorts of bad actors. Um,
So,
Uh, for instance, from the elite as well. Yeah, yeah.
Zarathustra, do you think that Greta Thunberg was bottom up?
I mean, maybe she, she. I don't know how she exactly became famous initially, but very quickly was picked up and celebrated by the elites. Yeah, so
Yeah, as far as Greta Thunberg goes, and this is why people increasingly don't agree with you, at least Thustra, is Greta Thunberg was. You're right. She was basically picked up by the various media outlets, and we saw uh at one point, I forget exactly what the leak was or how it was done, but it was basically revealed that her tweets are being managed, done by her parents and people around her parents, and that her parents had purposefully, like almost their entire lives, been trying to make this girl famous in some capacity on various progressive movements.
yeah.
Uh, and I guess in one sense you could say that it was bottom up because it was these her parents individually that were trying to make her famous, but
No,
ultimately
that's not bottom up when you want to be famous. Bottom up is when you come up with an idea that is new uh, but that wasn't a new idea. And let me ask you this: do you know anyone who was in any way persuaded by Greta Thunberg?
I mean, there were a lot of protests done in her name, right?
She's a symbol, yeah. But
mhm.
okay, so what? I mean, you always pick symbols. Uh, uh,
Yeah, but I guess the point is that the whole like uh, like the whole environmentalist movement acts like it's people power and whatever, or they are against the corporations and whatnot, but uh, it's not really like that.
But
no,
in the case of Greta, for example, you you say, did she convince anyone? Well, she didn't convince anyone because that's a topic which is very played out. The arguments that have been made on the topic are at this point very thorough. She might have the media pressure might have coerced some people to change a few of their minds, but probably not many. But you can easily imagine a theoretical world with a different Greta Thunberg. Let's say let's say Greta had decided that she was a man, and she made a big activist push on that issue. There's no reason that she couldn't have been more influential, even if she was picked out for her own purpose, for those purposes. Like, it doesn't have to be climate change as an issue. It could have been any number of other issues where the public would have been more receptive.
I
So
don't think the people are that stupid. That's I
Uh,
think that this is and this is the I think this is one of the big I believe in the wisdom with the wisdom of the crowd. Um, and and I always say you want to reduce the power of the elite, give the people more credit because how does the elite get the power? Because
no,
because of, because most people have an elitist mindset which believes that other people are stupid. So we need to promote strong people who will to the elite. For instance, yeah, the um, the right wing in America, yeah, believes that these ideas, these new woke ideas, will take over because people are too stupid to resist them. So we need to vote for this billionaire Trump to become the president, and he will change. So they give all the power to this basically elite figure. And then the left wing says, oh, the Trump is promoting ideas that are non-democratic. All the stupid right wingers will believe him, will follow him, and will destroy democracy. We need to give power to the court, to the to every to the television, to to the internet, yeah, to Silicon Valley, yeah. Suddenly they became very pro censorship on the internet and all that to defeat Trump because he was this danger because to democracy because all right wingers are too stupid and they will all become alt right if we don't do anything, and this is how the elite gets power.
So I guess the question then would be, well, then how do you achieve political change then, if you can't like vote, get
I,
stuff done by voting or organizing politically or doing activism? Uh,
you 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 I don't believe in politics. I believe in culture. Culture creates new ideas. The ideas get to the mainstream and then become part of politics. Okay, politics follows. So you want to change the politics, create new ideas, and push them, and
Well,
eventually they
that's
will become part of the mainstream, become part of the culture, become part of the politics.
well, that's partially what this book is pushing.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of things in the book that I agree with, um, but I agree with the main premise, yes,
Mhm.
the elite is. But like I said, because of that, I'm completely. This is, like I said, I'm completely non-political, because partly
Mhm.
because of that, because I don't believe in that politics can bring change. Uh,
hmm.
yeah, I believe in change through culture. But the thing where I disagree is that culture is top down, because then I will not be able to change things through culture. And I'm saying no, culture is bottom up.
See, I view that as a almost naively libertarian belief, as if state power can never have an impact, as if state power and top-down power will never have a decisive impact upon culture. Obviously, culture can influence the other way, but I just don't think the argument that culture is immune from the state or can or won't have tremendous issues resisting the state if the state devotes all its energy. I can't take that super seriously.
Look, I didn't say it's immune. I said that the new ideas are all bottom up.
Hmm.
The elite doesn't come up with new ideas, or
Hmm.
at least not new ideas that take root with the
Hmm.
people, because the elite doesn't know, is not attuned to the people. So it's the new ideas, the new styles, all that. Everything comes from the community, from it's for people forming around something.
Hmm.
And like I said, the elite, first of all, the industry, everything, yeah, takes once it notices, it takes hold of it and starts appropriating it.
Hmm.
And look, and this is what happened to wokeness. Yeah, it's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. That wokeness is part of the elite now because it's being appropriated. It's not like the elite is becoming woke. They took these woke ideas and appropriated them and turned them into something that is meant to maintain their power. It's not. Yeah, it's that they're using. Look at the Democratic Party using these ideas to basically call Bernie Sanders fans, supporters, racists and sexist and all that. Yeah, and. There was just I just watched Jimmy Dore, Max Blumenthal. You know this. He was talking about how every progressive publication was destroyed by these woke they were talking about Felicia Somnes, who now she was finally fired from Washington Post before she
Oh,
managed to destroy everything there. But he said that these type of Felicias destroyed a lot of left-wing outlets, progressive outlets.
okay,
Um,
but it can be both. It can serve the interests of power and be and become a completely sincere belief.
yeah, uh,
Hmm.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
no, yeah,
yeah, I guess. I mean, but then I mean, if you look at somebody like somebody who supported Bernie Sanders or whatever, from their perspective as well, you could say that, well, there's nothing that we can really do, um, like make these changes to society that we want to make. Um,
that's right.
Yeah,
If you
well,
not if you
like
go the political way, the political route. Uh, and their ideas, we've all agreed. Socialism. I mean, socialism, or communism, because those guys are communists. The root of it is that there will be no elite in a communist society, and like we said, that's a pipe dream. There will always
well,
be elite.
yeah, I'd say the root of it, and this is like Spandrel's bio-Leninism essay, is the idea of ressentiment and sort of like these groups of people that are losers in society or outcasts or whoever, wherever people are on the margins. They try to organize in order to like overthrow the society that exists.
Mhm. Yeah, and what I'm saying is that the right way to do it is just to create ideas and preferably, present them in a way, in an aesthetic way, the pop culture way of all the medium, all different mediums, popular records, popular music, yeah, and I don't know, science fiction or whatever, yeah, all that. These ideas eventually take root and become part of the culture, and then you change the culture. But there is nothing more to do, in my view, on the political edge. We are living in the best possible society. I mean, you can, or at least best possible system. Yeah, the best possible system, the liberal democracy. That's the system that gives you the most freedom. But yeah, there will always be. That's why I always kind of all this talk about draining the swamp. There will always be a swamp. You can't drain the swamp. Uh, you have to just accept that
No,
this is what it is.
you replace the swamp. You replace the swamp with your people who will swamp in your direction rather than swamp in their direction.
I'm not sure because I think that even it's there also that there's this.
Why not? Did the Bolsheviks not completely replace the entire apparatus of state?
And the Bolsheviks also kind of started then playing, the capitalist game, because you're part of this of a global community, of a global, of a, yeah. You have to deal with the world. So the elites kind of um, you know the elites kind of affect each other. Um, and yeah, you can change. But it's not going to be to your benefit. It's not that the people who supported the Bolsheviks, it wasn't for their benefit, unless they were part of the party, unless
Yeah, if
they
you were
had
part
they
of the party,
unless
it was certainly to your
they
benefit.
yeah, okay, but we're talking about the people here, yeah. So the w-
I
w-
I mean, I wasn't specifically talking about the general people. I was talking to a great extent about the people who were like part of the party, who were Bolshevik party members, who had been
Yeah,
pushing all this stuff.
okay,
Maybe
this
I didn't
started.
make that clear enough.
But okay, but this I was talking about what is the best society for the people. Yeah. So I said that there is no there is no better than what you have today. There is no draining the swamp and creating or even creating a better swamp for the people. So uh,
So yeah, it's like as you probably are aware, academic agent is also very fond of David Bowie, and so in one of the interviews he did on this book, he explained that before getting into YouTube politics and stuff, he used to be like a culture guy. So it seems to me like you two have like gone in the opposite direction, because I guess he has gone from looking at culture to looking at politics.
yeah, I mean, back in 2016, we were very much close, me and the academic agent. We had uh, we had a podcast together. We agreed on a lot of things, even though I was more on the left and he was more on the right. But then and I understand why now.
Mm.
Because he had this belief he had this belief in libertarian that the economy will yeah he was very much an economy guy and believed in pure capitalism and he doesn't believe in that anymore because he doesn't because he came to the realization that a lot of it is controlled uh, and which for me was always obvious. So
W-
I take this for granted that's yeah that there's this elite, that there's a swamp, uh, and
Right, but academic agent would no doubt be saying to you that it's just the same with culture. That uh,
yeah,
that
well,
even
I explained why I think it's not, and look, a big part of uh, one reason, let's say, of why I do what I do, why I focus on culture all the time, and I create all these series about culture, is to show that it's all bottom up. And one, I remember that one of the early points where I saw academic agents beginning to sway, it was I don't remember the name of the channel, but there's this channel that claims uh, that shows how Hollywood basically shapes the minds of the people, and
Mhm.
yeah, and actually, Jews, but and the things that are on these channels are just ignorance. Okay, there's this uh, there's this video that he made. I don't remember again the name of the channel about blackface, and he
Mm.
claimed that blackface was began with the jazz singer with the 1920 famous Hollywood the first talking movie jazz singer. That this kind of created blackface. The blackface goes back to the middle of the 19th century. It's the minstrel show, and actually in the beginning it was, uh, I would say, a humanist thing. It's first time you showed black people in a humanist way, uh, and it was actually never meant to uh, to denigrate black people, blackface. It was always it was making fun of them, yeah, but in a good natured way. And yeah, by today's sensibilities, it is offensive, and so don't do it anymore.
But
This
but like to that point. Now I know very little topic. I'll preface it with that, but uh at the time, you could have a good-natured ribbing against black people as a general group. Today, you
Yes.
cannot,
You cannot.
but you can have a very ungood-natured ribbing at the expense of white people in
Yes.
America today. Is that a top-down change or a bottom-up change?
It's something that comes because of the identity politics of the last 50 years of the fight against um, because the idea was that uh, okay, I mean, okay, so in the modern age, yeah, the idea was that man is progressing to the universal man, and the universal man was created in the image of the white male, if you want, or straight white male, okay?
Mm.
And then when it started to crumble, people start to feel that, okay, society is imposing on us this image the of the ideal, how we should be, and this ideal is white and male, and it's it's oppressing us if we're not white males or straight white males, and so they start to fight against that, and and what I said that when I said identity politics is obsolete is exactly that this should have ended because we no longer believe in this that the white man is the ideal. Yeah. But then, this is the nature of things.
But
You can't stop, so you carry on, and then they started to basically the white man became this target of not just the thing of basically it basically became this. It's been taken over by this Marxist idea that there's two classes: white people and non-white people, and in order to reach utopia, we need to get rid of the white people. Yeah, and that's the okay. So yeah, so it's this is an idea. Okay, it came from the academy, not from the but the people were susceptible to it because of these 50 years or even more than 50 years of fighting against this hegemony of the white man. We need to get rid of that. It's part of that's part of culture. To always you have to play whack-a-mole with bad ideas, and every good idea that you create eventually becomes bad.
But I mean, to the point, to the example that you gave, that doesn't really dismiss the top-down view. All it says is that when the elite is coming at something culturally and is going to impose something top-down, they have to form it in such a way that it's already palatable to the
Yes.
masses. But at the same time, like they're the ones, like militarily, they're the ones that has initiative, and the masses are the ones that are entirely defensive.
Not when it comes to ideas. Again, when you come to when you talk about the masses, again, I believe in the wisdom of the masses, and the wisdom of the masses means that we everybody may be stupid, but together there's this hive mind that understands things. People. Okay, people voted for Trump. Uh, a lot of them believed in all sorts of populist ideas. What happened to Trump? A lot of them will internalize it, and so that means that the public at large is smarter now. Yeah. Um, so so this idea of not organized, uh, I reject that because and I think that AA says in the book as well, the organized group will gain power for a while, but eventually will crumble. because
Oh, right.
of its rigidness and all that.
But it crumbles to the next organized group. Like you see that with for example, in the French Revolution, it was an organized group of liberals, revolutionaries who already were simmering in these ideas, who already believed in all of that. They organized, came together. Same with the Bolshevik Revolution. Whereas AA, and he explicitly contrasts this in the book. You look at the example of January 6th. These people just sort of waltzed into the Capitol expecting something to happen, and it didn't, and they all got arrested.
Yeah. Did they expect something to happen? I kind of see it as this moment of just kicking at the system of that just feeling that they can't do anything, and so they just want to break, to just uh, when I saw it in real time, I immediately tweeted out that scene from Animal House where the Delta guys say, "This situation calls for a really futile and stupid gesture to be done on somebody's part, and we are just the guys to do it." And this for me that was the MAGA. That they had no plan and they had no and
Which, which is
they just wanted to stick it to the man. That's all they wanted to do.
which is exactly the point that this book makes. That because they were not organized, because you didn't have a certain group of people at the top who had a plan, it just dispersed into nothingness.
But again, that's when you look at it on the political level, whereas on the cultural level, you people form groups, and those groups are. I don't know if you call it organizations. They don't really have command. They don't even have a chain of hierarchy or whatever. But those cultures are cohesive for a while, uh, and they create ideas and they create powerful, artistic things that then spread to society, and change it. And this is this is how you fight against this. I mean, this is why I focus on it all the time. Yeah, on these things. Um, you create these. This is always the counter. That's the jailhouse rock. Yeah, you always party inside the jail. So you have a good time, and also out of this party comes ideas that keep the jail at least habitable, or at least free enough for you to be able to party in the future as well. Uh,
So, I mean, even if you accept that politics is downstream from culture, you can't really escape from ideology. So, I mean, have you really escaped from politics by focusing on art? I mean, I I doesn't really. I mean, it seems to me like art is not really above politics. That it can't be.
but the
Uh,
ideology
Especially
in
not today.
the ideology in a liberal democracy is a liberal democratic ideology, which, like I said, is the best that we have, and I want it to maintain, and I want liberal democracy to remain, so I can keep on partying
But
being and creating ideas against it all the time. Yeah,
but
against
but
the ruling class.
but I would point out to you that you look at modern culture. Now, admittedly, this is all well. At this point, we're talking big Marvel movies, big Star Wars movies, all the big movies, etc. So, admittedly, this is more top down. But you look at them all; they all have, at this point, full on cultural commissars. Most. We can debate, but like nearly a majority of the writing process is done. is today devoted to making it ideologically compliant, and the ideology they're complying to is not liberal. Is not liberal capitalism. Is not liberal democracy or liberal capitalism or anything like that.
Well,
It
I would
is.
disagree about Marvel, at least in the last decade. I know I'm starting to see all sorts of woke elements entering it now, but I'm not talking about cinema. To me, cinema is a dead medium. Yeah, I'm talking when talking about today. I'm talking about YouTube. I'm talking about forums on the internet. Yeah, I'm talking about people on Zoom. One of the things that was the cultural change and the recent cultural changes um, is the mediums that because people were at home. Uh, a lot of them had streaming became what we're doing now became a lot more popular, and this is something that is affecting culture. Another thing, by the way, that is affecting
Right.
culture, which I've noticed lately. One genre that became popular during the pandemic is reaction videos, people reacting for the first time to something. Um, to TV shows, movies, or whatever,
I
or
mean,
songs.
those had been popular before the pandemic. I remember them.
Uh, it became really popular now,
Yeah, perhaps.
and a lot of the reactors are black because they have this way of talking that is kind of an entertaining, and
Hmm.
so the reactions can be entertaining. And I've noticed in the last few months that a lot of someone is asking them to react to Thomas Sowell and to Larry Elder, and videos made by all these dissident black Americans that
Hmm.
are going against
The
this
prevailing narratives.
the narratives, yeah, and they're watching it, and look, this is one of the big changes that I'm seeing right now.
Mm.
Look, there was always black conservatives,
Hmm.
but what is happening now is that the black conservative still used to vote for the Democratic Party
Hmm.
because the Republican Party was regarded as racist.
Hmm.
We are seeing now the black conservatives detaching from the Democratic Party, and that is one of the things to me that is hugely important because uh, basically it kills identity politics because then you can't Democratic can't present itself as fighting against those racist
Well,
Republicans. That's one thing, and more importantly, the reason why it is changing, the reason for this change is that they realized that they at least and we recently mainly the black the left, the progressive left is and even the liberal the democratic establishment is defining black people as victims in as not just as victims in kind of in an ontological sense that they are
yes,
victims, and they cannot change it until there's the revolution. Yeah, they will always be victims. Now when you victimize
yes,
someone like that, you're basically crippling them because
yes,
being a victim is a form of a disability,
yes.
and a lot of black people are now resisting this, and look, this is not just black people. I see it's all minorities all over the world are getting this treatment, and the and black Americans are kind of the leading of all the leaders of all minorities in the world. That they all look to them. So if the black will change on that, and start to talk against this victimhood thing, the victimhood narrative, it's a huge change. I still don't know how deep it goes yet. I'm seeing it, a lot on YouTube. I still don't know how deep it goes, but this is one thing. The one important change, the other important change that is happening is with the Muslims. something that is unprecedented, where we see this rise of ex-Muslims who are talking against Islam, and we're seeing criticism of Islam just online. Just those are the two big revolutions that are going on right now, which are huge. And I still don't, since it's still only online, there's always the danger that it's going to be quashed by because just
But
what Silicon Valley can destroy,
like the alt-right, yeah.
but it is taking root, and there is a big change now. So this is what I talk about when I talk about bottom up. Yeah. Uh,
I
but
mean, um,
that is the exact point. Like, even if a system can be hacked, it can also be squashed. It's just a dependency on the will of the central actors and the elite.
I mean, isn't that what happened with?
Yeah, you're about to say, isn't that what happened with the alt right? To a
Yeah,
great extent, that's true. You can also point to, like we were talking about YouTube, for example, and you were talking about how this long form content became more popular. A great deal of why that happened is because YouTube, in terms of payouts to the content creators, started basing it off of not like videos watched, but total amount of time
yeah.
that people
Time,
watch
yes.
the video.
Yeah.
Therefore, a lot of people started putting out very long form content because that made them more money. That's a top down change that absolutely had, I'd
Yeah,
say, a
but
pretty
it's not.
decisive
Yeah, yeah, but
impact.
again, it's not an idea. It's a change in the medium. The ideas, and are you okay? So I talked about these changes that are happening, and I said you can quash these ideas, but they will find ways to other mediums to go through. I mean, like a guy, no, someone I work with, a co-worker, uh, Ethiopian Jew. He's
Mhm.
watching something on his telephone. And also, what is he watching? It's is through Telegram. Yeah, through Telegram.
Mhm.
He's watching. Can we say his name on YouTube? Um, let's say Romy Tomlinson.
Okay, okay,
Uh,
yes.
but yeah. So the guy was kicked off, YouTube and all that, and through Telegram, he's finding people who will watch him, in Israel, yeah, from
Mhm.
Ethiopia. So it finds a way, um, uh, and yeah.
I
So
mean, but
I mean,
I mean, if you look at, I mean, if you look at, it's not just right-wing voices either. I mean, like that's like if you look at people like Vosh and Destiny, um, who I don't know, I guess you could consider them to be against the current system. Maybe I wouldn't. No, no,
no.
no. It's exactly. That's the point.
listen,
They have
Destiny,
millions of yeah. What is it?
Yeah, they
Destiny
get
is not.
millions and millions of views.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Destiny is not. Destiny is
I,
now a total shitload.
mhm.
Is completely
Oh
anti-woke.
yeah, I know Destiny's starting to branch out a little, but just for sake of argument, focus on the people like ContraPoints or Vaush or
Yeah,
something like
okay.
that.
Like
Yeah.
the
But
system supports them, and because of that, like it's like the values or the Vogue values or whatever, like they have a lot of supporters in the the bottom, people. It's not like the people at the bottom like have a totally different value system from those at the top, because those the people at the bottom have the values given to them um, from those at the
yeah,
top. Uh,
yes, they do.
Yeah,
And I
but
think
look,
like
the people that you just mentioned, they are not those. They are not Anita Sarkeesian. They're not. They have, let's say, first of all, they became famous talking against the alt right. And if you listen to someone like Vosh, is actually not really woke. He whenever the idea those ideas that come from the woke, he says, oh, that just a few people believe in that, nobody believes in that. Which so he doesn't really know what he's talking about when he's talking about wokeness. And so he thinks it's just the right wing imagining things. So and he's and occasionally he
No,
will
I think he's just lying, frankly. But continue.
no, occasionally he will say something that is very anti-woke, uh, and uh, and will anger them. Just after what he said against women, which got J.K. Rowling to tweet to tweet against him. Uh, he
I
was
mean,
he was
but
attacked by Cat Black, and he's like, and he's trying to explain to Cat Black his position to Cat Black, and he says, and at some point he says she would not she will not listen to me because I'm a white guy. Yeah, good morning, Bosch.
yeah, but
That is
yeah,
that is hilarious.
but isn't that just the benefit of clergy? Like people like A have to like walk on eggshells in order not to say something that will get them banned. And
Yeah,
maybe if they said the same things that Bosch said, they would get banned.
yeah.
So like
But again, I'm looking at ideas, not so much at people, and people.
But
You want to be, you look. There's the good sides and the bad sides. If you are someone who kind of walks goes is part of the system, is part of the you're kind of the bitch of the system, and it's more fun to be anti-establishment, but.
but I
But then you run the risk of being that the establishment will try to
yeah, but I mean,
squash you.
I
but
don't I,
but
I
but
don't think.
I
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
yeah, if you'll just let me get in here good soon. The point that I think AA would make, and certainly I would make, is even if you can have these ideas percolate to a certain degree outside of power, these ideas will never themselves have power without power. They will never be able to truly influence and actually influence
But
real
but but I told you what
policy
happens.
and the way.
The elite appropriates these ideas.
Yes, but the point is, what happens when the elite will not appropriate the new ideas?
Well, then
Well,
then then it becomes an authoritarian state.
well, then that's where we're at.
No, we're not. We're not there. Okay. At the moment, like I said, at the moment it's worse than usual because the elite. There's a bigger gap, like I said, between the elite and but still. Ideas do come up, and look, are you noticing what's happening now? Because, like I think I said that the the war that was in 2015 between the SJWs and the shitlords
Mm.
on the internet, the shitlords won. So the SJWs basically went into the went into the elites. These ideas were picked up by the elite and became uh, high profile. Yeah, it's now it's a Democratic Party and all that, and Disney and Silicon Valley and all that were promoting these ideas. So now you have shitloads who are high profile, yeah, and who are taking ideas that we're talking about, and I'm talking
Name
about
me
Rob DeSantis and Elon Musk and even Bill Maher and Joe Rogan, and so
but
they're
those
on and they are affecting each other to talk against this, and
but at the end of the day, those are periphery figures. Ultimately, they start to have power, yes, and you're right. Culture does start to bleed in there, but all of those are periphery outsider elite. They
yeah,
are
for the
not
moment.
the main elite themselves. Yes, for the moment.
For the moment, DeSantis, I think, is a strong contender to be a president. Um,
Yeah,
and he's
I personally think the Trump uh that the Trump sort of like I don't want to be too demeaning to some people, but the following around Trump I think is too strong for 24. But we'll see how things turns out, and that's even assuming that you could get fair election. But continue.
yeah. So no, so these ideas are beginning, and you're seeing them more and more. And again, look, like I said, people like online, people like Destiny, yeah, is moving very anti woke. Look at Jimmy Dore is now most of the time is just attacking woke.
Mhm.
Or attacking the yeah, attacking the democratic establishment and all that.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, because I'd argue that the establishment has fully declared war on what used to be like process liberalism, etc. And so, because of that, you're essentially seeing a divide in the left
yeah, yeah, yeah,
between
yeah.
those whose views were whose values were always primarily cultural or primarily economic can still stay on the left, but those whose views who had like liberalism and the concept of it and the concept of the fair neutral society, uh for them, if that was like a defining feature to them that they can't compromise, they're now getting pushed out.
Yeah, but that's Jimmy Dore is also woke, except he's the faction that is mainly anti-imperialist. That's what they define themselves as, yeah,
Mhm.
anti-imperialist. And the thing is, because of that, they see America as the source of all the problems in the world.
Mhm.
That's not popular in the Democratic Party. So the
I
Democratic Party is using all of the woke techniques against this faction. So they now feel it. Yeah, they now realize what wokeness is, and and uh, and they're fighting against it. And what I'm saying is, by fighting against it, they're constantly being fed, uh, uh, you know, things from us, yeah, from the kind of anti-SJW crowd. Uh, we kind of provide them videos, and not me, but I see it that it's this channel that they send things to Jimmy Dore. Look at this. Um, and yeah, so I'm seeing now this. I don't. I'm seeing a big shift, a cultural shift,
So,
of anti wokeness.
the thoughts in the chat asks, does Vosh think the right wing is just imagining things regarding to wokeness, or is he actively arguing in bad faith?
Uh,
Yeah.
it's yeah. I don't know, but it seems to me that he's ignorant. Really, uh, I don't. Someone like Sam Cedar is. I also don't know if he's ignorant. Yeah, but he's totally bad faith, Sam Cedar. But I think he's also ignorant. He's not even looking at what's going on. He's still in 2008 with the progressives of 2008. Uh, things with we are 15 years ago. We lived 15 years ago. Um, yeah. So, but Vosh is at least partially deaf to what is going on the woke sphere. That's why he's making all these mistakes. Look, the woke don't like him. They say that he's a misogynist and
So,
Okay, but from our perspective, that's just the revolution eating its own.
yes.
um, I guess another motivating fact for, I guess, the dissident right or whatever, um, turning against democracy, I think, was like it kind of felt like do we even live in a liberal democracy when there was a total refusal to investigate whether there was election fraud. Um, the,
Yeah, there certainly was that. Yeah, that's a fair
But
example on that. And before you respond, Zarathustra, let me run through it just a little bit. Before the election came about, there was already some talk about it. There'd been various, especially with all the amount of local of new laws that were suddenly getting passed to make it so that you could have like same day turn in a ballot, etc., from the mail. And there was all this. There was a coordinated push by the U.S. media talking about, well, the actual election results might not be happen until weeks afterwards. So everyone on the right was very suspicious that there was going to be electoral shenanigans. On the day of the election, on the night of the election, Donald Trump, once he had a sizable lead in terms of the popular electoral vote, declared that he believed that he had won, specifically because he anticipated such a maneuver. And but the result was that every single mainstream media outlet refused to align itself with the president's views, refused to speak to them nearly as much. And to any extent that they did, they were eventually ordered by the higher ups of all of entertainment the that if they did not shut up about this, that they were going to get fired. Tucker Carlson, who's like the most right wing guy on TV, didn't even discuss the matter at all. I think he probably uh, was given a message or simply had the right sensibilities about the way things would crack down on this. But regardless, uh, although ideas about whether or not the election was fair and free percolated, uh, any sort of mass, uh, and it's true, a lot of people did start to believe that it was not fair based off of simply the sheer amount of censorship that was going on and a certain degree of
yeah.
the Streisand effect. Uh, at the same time, a lot of the actual information about it just did not get out, was not able to get out, and is still very understudied, very underviewed because there was so much censorship around, and still is.
But there were hundreds of court cases.
And,
They all
yeah,
went to court. Look, you go through the
and
system.
every single one of those court cases was just was simply dismissed on the procedural grounds of we don't we don't think we should be looking into it. Like saying we choose not to investigate a murder case and then taking from that that there was no murder
No,
or that we can't know
I
who the
don't think
murderer
that this is what
was.
happened. I recall that they did look into evidence. Um, and look, to say that there's election fraud, to basically uh, reject the results of the election, can destroy democracy. You have to do that. Uh, you, to do that, you have to have really strong basis, and this is why, and I'm sure that this is why people on Fox News and people on the Republican Party, all that, refrained from doing that, even if they thought it. They knew that you can't do that. It's very dangerous for democracy. Um, and
Meanwhile, back in 2016, there was a constant shouting and ringing that that election was illegitimate because of essentially Facebook, $10,000 of Facebook ads supporting the Green Party candidate at the time. And because of that reason, the 2016 election was being held to be illegitimate,
No, it
and
didn't
the
have to be, it
Democratic
wasn't have to be
Party was
illegitimate. There was
open. The Democratic no, no, let me finish. The
yeah.
Democratic Party was openly calling for runaround issues where the electors would simply choose to vote another way, and encouraging them to do so in the electoral college system. So clearly, at a minimum, one side cares about norms and the other does not.
Or
I don't recall the you know democratic establishment calling for electors. The claim was that Russia, yeah, that was the claim. Yeah, Russia intervened, which
Yeah,
yeah,
and the
and
claim
that's
was
okay.
entire, and the
Yeah,
claim was basically entirely about the idea that there was media interference and bot ads. There were vague claims about hacking into systems, but they never were
yes,
able to
so
prove the
yes,
beginning of that
and because of that, there was never a real push to reject the election results. It wasn't nothing strong. And I would argue that the Republican push was stronger in 2020. Uh,
And I
I
would
mean,
argue to you that I mean
look,
I never I would argue that that was mostly a grassroots push, and that the Republican Party itself mostly
yeah,
attempted to
but
resist that
yeah,
most of the way, but it was pushed
but
by
Donald,
Trump
yeah,
and a few of
Donald
his
Trump did it.
loyalists. Trump
so
pushed it, yes.
Yeah.
Trump pushed it.
so like so even if there wasn't election fraud last time, even if politics is downstream from culture, because of mass migration, bringing in people from another culture who are basically who become basically
The new
permanently,
voters.
yeah, the new
Yeah.
voters. So that's another thing which I think made the right lose faith in
Yeah.
liberal democracy.
Yes, and that's a dangerous thing. We'll see what's happening now because I think that another thing that we are seeing is that the Latino voters, basically the Hispanics, they are quite quite conservative when it comes to issues of culture,
Yes,
and
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 there
and
but and
and
there are
and left wing when it comes to economy.
mhm,
Now, while as long as the Democratic Party was for the working class, you know the
mhm.
Hispanics were supporting it. And now that it's all about all these nonsense identity things, I mean, at least the polls are suggesting
Mhm.
a large shift
No,
in the Hispanic vote.
I'd largely agree with you there, but the thing is, you can always just make a solution of that by importing more of a different ethnic group, one that does feel that they are more the outsider and will
First
attempt
of
to.
all, you're not importing, you're allowing them in, and the people you are allowing in are coming from the Mexican border. Um, and if they again if they start voting Republican, they will also start to think of themselves more as Americans, more as less as less Mexican, more American. And the demographic, I would okay. This is the maybe why I'm more optimistic because I have the Israeli experience that these kinds of problems eventually solve themselves. We're always worried about demographics. In the 1960s, the birth rate among Arabs was 8 per woman,
Mhm. Yeah.
and for Jews it was like 2.5, 3. Nowadays the Jews, the birth rate among Jews is higher than on the Arabs because they became part of first of all they became part of the Israeli democracy and started to develop a little bit more, but also in the entire Arab world the birth rate has collapsed. Um,
Mm.
and there's a cultural shift there. So that's one thing that changed. I mentioned before the problem with the illegal immigrants with Africa solved. We always had a big water problem here. Solved. Yeah, we started all sorts of created all sorts of technologies and techniques and solved the water problem here.
Mm.
Things work themselves out, and I'm not worried so much about demographics. I think that the culture again. I believe in the culture. I believe in the like I said, Hispanics who come to America. Look, I was in America a few years ago.
Mm.
I had Airbnb. I was staying with a Mexican woman,
Mm.
and I was talking to her. I had a conversation with her, and she was married to a Japanese guy.
Mm.
And she said, I want my children. I don't want them to become American. I want them to be Mexican.
Mhm.
I told her they're already American. Yeah, they have a Japanese father and a
Mhm.
Mexican. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's not your yeah, yeah.
But
That's the American culture affects the people to mingle and change, and they become Americans. And I think that there will always be this mass thing that is American. Um,
Do you see the
well,
same thing in Europe?
the
Sorry.
problem is
yeah, I see that. I think I believe in Europe as well.
problem is the changing definition of what being American really means. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's always changing. You have to, the thing is that again, it's the same process
Uh,
that the elite is, or at least
and
the conservative elite finds a way to take the new things and work them into along with the conservative values of the society.
I mean, like they were tearing down
but
statues of the founding fathers.
Yeah,
So
uh,
you,
yeah, I
yeah,
think that's a trend.
there's nearly not a single statue in like a truly prominent place like the Smithsonian of the founding father that's been left standing.
Yeah,
Like
that's
in tertiary areas, you'll still find them, but in like the main official areas, all
yeah,
gone.
yeah. That's a ridiculous trend that will be reversed eventually. They will be erected again.
I have no faith that any such trend will be reversed. And you said something about endemic issues working themselves out. Uh, in the case of myself being an American, I look at those endemic issues, and okay, a few of them went away, but for the vast majority of them, uh, those endemic issues have not gone away. They have accelerated. And I think that speaks to an elite difference between, like, let's say, the elite of America and the elite of Israel.
Could
yeah,
be because the elite of Israel are we're all Jews and they all believe that kind of we see ourselves as the uh, that we have to stick together.
Mm.
Um, and they really they come from the people. There's no Washington D.C.
Mm.
In Israel. Yeah, so
No.
the politicians live among us. And everybody, all the elites live among us. It's not that
Mhm.
they live in some place of their own, um,
Yes.
but or Silicon Valley or something. Um, and yes, so yeah, I agree that I think that America is kind of the America has reached an impasse where it's in a basically it's in a you know characteristics of have come to a place where it's kind of a crisis. Uh, there's a crisis of the system of the American system. Um, But yeah, once chances are it will work itself out. Um, and without America becoming, a totalitarian state.
Mm.
And once it works itself out, like I said, you can't not have statues of the founding fathers. Okay, things like that will be restored. Um,
You can have new founders.
uh, yeah, I don't think so. If then it will not be America. Yeah, so yeah, for that, yeah, you have to have a change in government. Uh, for for and
So,
then like you talked about the Bolsheviks before, yeah. So they took down the statue of Peter the Great and changed the name of Petrograd to Leningrad and
Mm.
erected the Lenin statue. So yeah, so that this is when that happens, but not if it remains the United States of America.
From the perspective of, I'd say, a lot of Americans were already at. We believe our government is already at that point. They just haven't formalized it yet.
Yeah, I think that's a bit. Uh,
Zarathustra, I mean, if you believe that culture is the most important, why is it, and that it will determine the future, why is it that you spend a lot of time looking at culture of the past rather than, I guess, culture now? Or do you think you spend enough time
uh,
doing both?
when you look at the past, you see trends. You can it's the present is confusing. I sometimes make videos trying to make sense of the present, but the past. I mean, why do you learn history? I actually working on a video of why history is important. One of the things is that you see things about society, like for instance, that how culture shapes society. That's something that I can show in the past and claim that it's true in the present as well.
But I mean, but do you see yourself as somebody just analyzing this trend, or do you think you are part of the trend of creating culture in some sense?
Definitely part of creating. I'm kind of small, so I don't have a lot of an effect, but um, I have some effect
Okay, so
because my document my series on videos always have a point to them. Yeah, it's I'm philosophical ideas. I see them as artistic creations, not just as history.
I guess the reason why I ask is because, like, sometimes when it comes to pop culture, I kind of feel like it's not created with like wanting to make a point, but like, um, for example, your book on the Marvel movies. Like, I wonder, like, is that um, some kind of analysis that you put on it after the fact, or um, like, are the people doing the analysis a separate class from the people doing the creation? But yeah, maybe that's another topic for another time. Um, okay,
I
so
mean,
yeah,
for a Nietzschean philosopher, it's the same thing. You're creating yourself by analyzing, by self-criticizing. Yeah, uh, so that's what I'm doing.
I see. All right. Do you think so? Basically, most of the people that were in the anti-SJW community that you were part of, they have moved on either to become progressives or right wing.
Yeah.
So, what community do you think you are part of?
At the moment, I don't see myself. I kind of all the people I had connections with back then, I kind of lost the connection. Uh,
Mm.
I mean, AA doesn't really talk to me anymore. He's gone.
I see. The reason why I asked is because like earlier you were talking about how like now it's not about the individual, but it's about like different communities
Yeah.
forming. Yeah.
You have to find. I have to find a new community. Yeah. So, and I'm waiting for something new to come up. uh, which I can, contribute to. Um,
I see. I see. Okay. So, um, what do you think about like quickly going through the ideas in the book chapter by chapter, or would you think you
I
have
mean,
enough?
yeah,
I think we've has gone on a fair bit.
the
Did
two
you?
and a half hours. I think we've talked quite a bit.
I see.
I'd only say if there's like any particular parts we want to bring out. Like for example, I did very much like uh the point from the juvenile, and I think this is a very unique point, and you'll tell me if you agree, Zarathustra. The idea that whenever a sovereign is attempting to accrue power to himself, he has to raise up new subsidiary powers uh, to replace that of the old. And you can really see that, I think, throughout history. Like in, say, Louis XIV's France, the nobility were raised down and the intendants effectively replaced them.
Yeah. I mean, it all comes from Machiavelli, doesn't it?
Mhm.
And first of all, of course, I mean, if you want, I don't think in a democracy, I don't think it's even possible that someone like Donald Trump can come and change the system from top down. It has to come from uh, it first of all, the ruler can't do it. It has to, the change has to come. I mean, if your fears are right, and you will have this leftist, which is un-American ruler in the future, he will, before he takes power, the all the all the systems will change as well. Yeah, the systems will, first of all, they will first of all take control of the other branches of power, and then the ruler will. Uh, in an authoritarian, someone like Saddam Hussein could just, when it when he there was this, after the ruler was deposed or something, the army generals all convened, and he like sat on the stage, and he was like, "Where's so and so, some general, and over here, so take him outside and shoot him." And his goons just took that general aside and shot him, and he did that with a few generals until all the other generals started chanting his name, yeah, and became loyal to him, and that's how he took power. And of course, once he did, he killed everyone who was loyal to the to the former system, for the former rule.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
yeah, but that's how you can do it in an authoritarian society. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, in Rome, yeah, they had the night of the long knives. Yeah, a new emperor
In
came.
Rome,
So,
you don't you mean Berlin?
where?
Did you say Rome, or were you
Yeah,
trying to?
ancient Rome.
Oh, ancient Rome.
Ancient Rome.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I thought you were referring to the Nazis. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. But that came from the Romans. Yeah, this
Hmm.
idea. Yeah, they took that from the Romans. Uh, yeah. So that once an emperor takes power, at the same night that the emperor takes power, he sends his people to just stab everyone to death that might threaten him. Um, yeah.
I mean, I disagree with you about the way a republic changes. I mean, you can look. Uh, in the case of, I mean, to be fair, Hitler was elected, so in that capacity, that
Yeah,
did happen. But there's also just as many examples of Caesar, let's say.
yeah. Okay, well, that's I'm talking about modern democracy. That I think that the power is too dispersed now. You can't kill everybody, uh, because power is it's again it's the managerial elite, and I agree with that. Yeah, it's all of those managers. It's not this small group of aristocrats or whatever. It's it's a
I mean,
it's a large number of people.
but don't you think
And
that there's less accountability because of that?
uh, I mean, like I said, I'm not really focused on that.
Okay.
I see again, the swamp is the swamp. Yeah, so I don't think that there's anything to do about that. Have to the jailhouse is a jailhouse, and you have to do just have your party in it.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 2.5 hours I think is enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd agree.
All right then. Thank you for joining us. I hope it was fun.
Yeah. I would just want to say I don't think we said that the book is well written.
Yeah, Populist Delusion. It's
Yeah.
very well written. Depending on how, it's something like 90 to 140 pages, depending on how your ebook reader puts it out. Very clear, very concise, goes through all the different thinkers. If you want like a insight into modern online rights discussions, and sort of where people are coming from right now, there is no greater summation. You're certainly free to read all these thinkers on your own, but if you want like a quick summation that's not just scrolling through Twitter feeds, this is probably the best you're going to get.
That's good.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that said,